Hello, everybody. How are you? How are things in your world, guys? It's time for an album review. I'm going to break down Beer Bongs and Bentleys by our buddy Posty. Now, everybody loves Post Malone. He's a huge star now. He broke onto the scene in only a very short time ago, but wow, did he follow it up with hit after hit? It's one thing to have a hit, but when you can come back again and again and again and again, well, now you are at the pantheon and you're operating at a different level. Let's go track by track. We're just going to find out what the songs are about. So, for example, the first song on Beer Bongs and Bentleys is Paranoid. Paranoid is his cover of the classic Black Sabbath tune, Paranoid, and it talks about, in this case, the paranoia that surrounds being such a huge star. So you're never quite sure, what does this person want from me? Are they being nice to me after the show because eventually they're going to try to get me into their MLM scheme? Those are the things you got to think about when you're operating at Posty's level. Spoil My Night with Sway Lee. Here comes old Sway Lee back with us. And Spoil My Night talks about a night they had in Nashville, riding motorcycles, riding motorcycles to try to go out get sushi. And they went up to the restaurant and they said, "Hey, we're gonna get some sushi and some beers." And the guy said, "Boy, the closest thing to sushi in Nashville is in New York City." And they're like, "New York City?" And that's what that song talks about. Rich and Sad is the next song on the album, Rich and Sad. Now, of course, we could all use some more money. And I think a lot of us have this picture of being rich will solve all those problems, all the problems and challenges that we have, and fill those holes in our hearts and our heads, if you have a hole in your head. And the song talks about how money does not solve everything. In fact, you can be rich and sad. All I would have to say is probably you're thinking the same thing. You just want to try it for a couple of years or 5. Zach and Codeine talks about his friends, Zach and Codeine, from when they were in junior high, just growing up there in Dallas. Zach and Codeine are now professional foosball players. Back in those days, they would sit around playing foosball in Posty's basement while Posty wrote songs. In fact, he wrote a song called Foosball Rockstar, which eventually he modified into the monster international hit Rockstar. Taking Shots, this is again another tale of the early days on the road where you are all by yourself. You're starting your music career and you're going from seedy hotel to seedy performance space, and maybe it's a bar, maybe it's a honky tonk, and you go back to your room and there's no groupies, there's nobody waiting, you're by yourself, you turn on wrestling on the TV and you pour yourself a tall shot, you down it, you go to sleep, you get up and you hit the road again. And coming in at number 6, Rockstar. Everybody loves Rockstar, featuring 21 Savage. Again, another big star alongside him there. It's like a hazy day where you fall asleep under a tree and then you go into some dream. It's that kind of tune that has a different kind of sound, but is, of course, a monster hit. What more can you say? Then you have Over Now, Over Now, Over Now, which is about, you know how when you were a kid and summers used to last forever, and then all of a sudden your parents said to you, "Hey, get ready to go to Kmart or Woolworths because we got to get school clothes." And you're like, "School clothes? I'm never going back to school. This is summer. Summer's going to last another 2 months." And they're like, "No, no, the summer's over. The summer's over now." And it's that realization that the things you thought were going to last don't. Next is Psycho featuring Ty Dolla Sign. Now this song originally, they're drawing their inspiration from the movie Psycho, which of course is a film classic. And in this case, they've updated the storyline to talk about an ex girlfriend. We've all had psycho exes. Now, in some cases like me, that's every one of them. Okay, and that might be you too. But I'm an expert, and I found this song particularly insightful with the patterns of criminal behavior that psycho exes, you know, do. how they behave. The patterns are very, very similar. Starts out lovey-dovey, and then you make one mistake, and all of a sudden they remember that mistake for the rest of their lives. They remind you of it on a daily basis, and their voices get higher, and they start to do this and this and this, and their behavior becomes not only obnoxious but criminal. And you want to drive them to the police station and drop them off and say, "Could you please check in, because I'm sure they're looking for you." The next song on our list is Better Now. Now, Better Now talks about when you're at the Bentley level of money, you are operating in a different world. So, beerbongs and Bentleys, if you are now into millions of dollars, life is better now. Let's be honest. This is the kind of thing where this song is about a trip they took to Switzerland because they're sitting around after having a couple of adult cigarettes, and they said, "What if we went to Switzerland to go skiing?" And these are the kind of thoughts that you have now that you have millions of dollars, because when you were poor, you probably didn't think in those ways. Even if you were less than poor, if you were only middle class, maybe you didn't think, "You know what, let's jump on a plane for the weekend and go to Switzerland." That's what Better Now is all about. You're shooshing down the slopes at St. Moritz, and you've had a bunch of German and Austrian beers where the alcohol content is like 95%, and you're like, yeah, this is it. Skiing in Switzerland after having 1920 German beers with 97% alcohol. The next song on the list is Ball for Me featuring Nicki Minaj. Now, these are stories that Nicki goes way back. Nicki has been on many collabs with big stars talking about her favorite subject, which is bowling. She loves to go bowling, and Ball for Me talks about the time that her and Posty went bowling, and Posty gave her a pretty good game. You might not think that a guy from Dallas does that much bowling, because that's more of an Ohio and Wisconsin type activity. You could say probably Chicago as well. But here comes Nicki. Of course, that's her favorite sport, so she's really good. She's got like a 297 average, but Posty gave her a really good game, and it's a fun song. It's an upbeat song, talks about their competition. Other Side is the next track. Other Side talks about having dreams, and it's like Billie Eilish asks, when we all go to sleep, where do we go? We go to the other side. This is Posty's take on the same question. Where are you actually going? Are we going into another dimension? And he says yes. Once you go to sleep, you're not just dreaming, you're entering into another dimension that may give us clues as to where we go after we die and to the other side. Now, Stay is the next song. Stay is one of those heartbreaking, heart-rendering songs that try to get somebody that we love to stay even though they want to misbehave. So you tell your dog, stay, and they don't stay. They don't stay. They've never been good at the training that you've given them. I mean, they can roll over and they can put a paw out when you go shake, but when you say stay, what do? They start walking toward you, wiggling their butt, wiggling their butt. And you're like, no, stay. They're like, what? I don't know what you're saying. It's almost like they have some kind of mental block on that one command. So this song talks about the frustration of trying to get that dog you love to just stay. I mean, there's really no reason for them to stay. You're probably just going to toss them a piece of your peanut butter sandwich, and then their mouth's going to get stuck together, because they, how they get when they get it with peanut butter, they love it, but then they can't open their mouth because it's stuck together with the peanut butter. So that's the frustrations of that experience in that song. Blame It On Me. Now, Blame It On Me is really a fun song too, because it's saying, hey, listen, I know our relationship went down in a jet hitting the ground into a ball of flame. That's what happened to our relationship, but you can blame it on me. In a way, it's a little twist on Jimmy Buffett's "It Could Be My Fault," right? And so Blame It On Me takes the pressure off of the person. This isn't just being altruistic. It's a little bit of a self-defense, because if you go back to the song Psycho, all right, sometimes you're dealing with somebody that could injure you if you don't de-escalate the situation by saying, hey, blame it on me. Partially you're doing that because perhaps you did have part of the blame. Partially you're doing it for self-defense, so they don't take out a knife and stick it in your neck. Okay, that's one thing you're trying to prevent. The Same Bees is the next song. It's with Jeezy and YG. Now, I don't know why Posty gets um, he gets grief from sometimes from the hip hop world for dissing hip hop. But here he's working with, in this case, on this one album, 4 or 5 of the biggest hip hop artists in the game, probably more that aren't listed in what I'm looking at here. So here he is with G-Eazy, and YG. Now there was a few other artists that couldn't make the track. He called up AB and CD and EF. He tried to get all of those. EF is EF Hutton. EF Hutton, the CEO of EF Hutton, is also a big rapper, and tried to get them all on there. But at this point, you had to go settle and just go with who said they could join the track, which is G-Eazy and YG. It's a great track. Next is Jonestown. Now, Jonestown talks about trying to get gas in Jonestown, Texas in the middle of the night. If you've ever driven through Jonestown, Texas, it's got one gas station, and that's it. And if you're driving through in the middle of the night, the gas station the pumps are open. Okay? So it's where, look, it's West Texas. Have you ever driven through West Texas in the middle of the night? Yeah, it's a little scary, but you're going to have to get gas because West Texas is 4,000 miles wide. So you pull over to get gas in the middle of the night, and the pumps are open, meaning they're lit up and ready to. You can use them. You put in your card, you can use them, but there's nobody there. But they know that people are going to need gas. So there you are in West Texas, and you put in your card, and it works. But now you're putting the gas in. But now the sign starts creaking from that West Texas wind. And you're like, there's somebody within 100 yards of me that's going to kill me. That's what you think. That's what you think. I'm going to get killed in Jonestown, Texas. And that's what the scariness of that situation is, what that song's all about. Next is 92 Explorer. 92 Explorer tells the tale in his early days. He drove around in a 1992 Ford Explorer. He threw his guitars in the back, his amps in the back, and then when he was able to then grow the band, grow the backup band, okay, then they would all sit on the roof. So all the equipment went in the back of the 92 Explorer, Posty drove, and there wasn't any room for the rest of the backup band, so they sat up on the roof. So what they did was they built a kind of a porch up there out of some windscreen that they stole off of a 86 Volkswagen bus. And then they wired it together, kind of a mishmash of chicken fence, those zip ties, and bread twisties. And that's how they drove around in the early days of Post Malone, trying to break into the business. Candy Paint talks about when they came to LA. So in early, I think it was when he was 19. I'm not sure, but young, 18, 19. Post Malone left Texas and drove to LA. Now this is after the 92 Explorer just died by the side of the road. So he invested in a new car that it didn't even have paint. It was just the metal husk of a junker. And so what they did was they had a party and they gave everybody paint, and they said, listen guys, go to town on the car because it doesn't have any paint. And they didn't even prime it. I mean, no primer. And so you're talking about people with 450 or 60 or 70 gallons of beer inside of them throwing paint on this car. And you might say, well, that's going to be a heck of a mess. And it was. But listen, one, it turned heads and built publicity because that car was featured in the New York Times Magazine. It was on the CBS This Morning Sunday show. And it got a lot of interest. And you got a song out of it. And finally, bringing up the rear is Sugar Wraith. Now, W-R-A-I-T-H. Now, Wraith is the name of one of his ex-girlfriends. He called her Sugar, and the band members just called her Sugar Wraith. Now, Sugar Wraith was instrumental in helping organize them, because remember, he started when he was 12, 13 years old. They didn't know what the heck they were doing. So Sugar Wraith had a business mind, and she was able to get them early gigs at laundromats, okay, standing outside of the shopping mall. They wouldn't let them inside the shopping mall because at that point they really weren't hitting the showers that often. But Sugar Wraith was an early manager, and she does have shares in the Post Malone Incorporation. And she decided to bow out of the music business in order to be a mom, which is fine, and it's fine, but also because her early faith in Posty and the backup band paid off, and now she's worth $750 million. And that is a wonderful end to a great, great album, Beer Bongs and Bentleys. Post Malone, one of the great success stories of, yeah, really the last couple years, although he was bubbling under. And then when he came out with White Iverson, whoa, we thought, everybody thought, okay, all right, here's some talent on the rise. And he delivered big with Beer Bongs and Bentleys.